Ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege, a real privilege for us to have with us this morning the governor of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper. We have worked with our governor for many years. I can tell you Governor Cooper knows, he understands Farm Bureau, he understands agriculture, and he certainly understands rural North Carolina. Governor Cooper is serving as North Carolina's 75th governor. Prior to that, all of you know he served as our Attorney General for 16 years. During his political career, he has also served with distinction in the North Carolina General Assembly. We are proud at Farm Bureau with the close working relationship that we have with his office and his administration. Since September, like the commissioner, like all of us, hurricane relief has occupied much of our governor's time. I've flown with him across the state looking at hurricane damage. We certainly thank you, Governor Cooper, and your team for your quick response to the needs of our state citizens impacted by Hurricane Florence and Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome to this podium His Excellency, the Governor of the great state of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper. Governor Cooper.
Good morning, everyone, and congratulations, Robert, on that fine award. Good morning, Commissioner Troxler and friends out there. I'm always grateful to be here with Peter and Jake and Julian and, of course, my longtime friend, Larry Wooten, who has been a strong voice for agriculture for many years, not only in Raleigh, but all across North Carolina and the country, for that matter. So, Larry, I'm grateful for that. I know that we're dealing with an unprecedented occurrence in North Carolina. We have never seen anything like Hurricane Florence. And sure enough, it was the largest, most destructive natural disaster that has ever hit our state. When this unwelcome brute hit our shores, we had storm surge. We had unprecedented rain that was measured in feet instead of inches. And it was grinding and grinding ever so slowly across our state. 8 trillion gallons of water fell, enough to fill Jordan Lake 530 times. I went out soon thereafter, and I saw our homes, our roads, our churches, our farms, our businesses underwater. I traveled into our hardest hit counties. I flew over and saw flooded farms, dead hogs and birds. I walked through devastated fields of cotton, tobacco, soybeans. I talked with Aaron Stack as we walked across his cotton field in Scotland County, Jimmy Birch in Duplin County as we were talking about all of the vegetable crop that he had lost. In Lee County, a tobacco field like I have never seen before, so devastated. Well, we did something about this, and it was a coordinated effort, and we've got a lot of work to do, and we need your help. I did travel with Larry some, and we met a lot of farmers and talked to them. And one of the things that we did very early on as this storm was way offshore, we issued an emergency declaration order 2 weeks earlier than it's ever been put in place before, in order to give farmers as much time as possible to get crops out of the field and to get ready for this storm that was coming. And it helped some. We also, I think, were the most prepared we have ever been, and the response to this storm was amazing. We had done some flood mapping and preparation, and there were hundreds of thousands of people who were evacuated from low-lying areas that we knew would flood. And there is no question that lives were saved because of these evacuations that were put in place. We also had first responders that were like none other I had ever seen. Over 5,000 people still had to be rescued because we had water come to places that had never come before. These first responders were brave. They were our local firefighters and police officers and emergency personnel and rescue teams. And not only were they here, but they came from states all over the country. I've been writing thank you notes to governors in 36 different states for people who came and who helped us. And I'm grateful to many of you. Farmers stepped up and helped each other even when you had fields that were flooded and things seemed devastated. Many of you were at your churches or at your shelters and helping people. Volunteers were putting their faith in action, serving hot meals, providing clothing and help for people. And I believe that in North Carolina, we've got a determined spirit like no other. I went to a lot of shelters and heard story after story after story, went to businesses and talked to people and to farms and talked to people. I was at one shelter down in Wilmington, and I talked to a woman, a senior, who lived alone in an apartment. Her family had moved far away, and she didn't know that many people. She didn't have much to start with. A firefighter, a brave firefighter, came in and said, "You got to get out of here in 15 minutes or less because water's coming." Sure enough, flood started coming in under the door. She grabbed a few possessions. That firefighter took her out. They had to wade through some water, got her in a boat, took her to safety. And when I met her, she was sitting on a cot in a shelter. She told me her story. I said, "I am so sorry, so very sorry." All she had left with those small possessions around her, all she had left to her name. You know what she did? She looked up at me and said, "You know what? I thank God I'm alive. I thank God for that firefighter who risked his life and pulled me out. And I thank God for all these volunteers who were here. Some of them have told me stories about their own homes flooded, yet they were still in this shelter, living their faith, volunteering and helping her." And she looked at me and said, "You know what? I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it." That's the kind of determined spirit we have here in North Carolina because we pull together. And at that moment, as if I hadn't felt it before, I believed that I had a responsibility to help her make it. And I think everybody in this room does. We quickly got together, provided damage assessments that I think were unprecedented, working hard, making sure that we had the right facts and figures, the mix of the private insurance that was involved, the mix of what we believed the federal programs would provide. We figured out that there was $17 billion in damages. The first thing we did was made a request to the state legislature for $1.5 billion. I made this request back in October. And part of that request was for direct payments to farmers. And the reason that I made that request was because of talking to people like the Farm Bureau, Commissioner Troxler, farmers on the ground that were saying to me, "These last few years have been tough. Yes, we've had weather problems. Just 23 months ago, we had Hurricane Matthew that had hit us hard. And now we've got this issue with the tariffs, and our markets are up in the air, and we've got this fight over immigration, and we're worried about our labor. And here we were going to have a pretty good crop year. But we needed to, because I was about leveraged out. And there were a lot of farmers, some of them who may be in this room, who next year, and you have to make decisions early for next year, as we know, many people were thinking, am I going to do this again? Can I afford to do this again? Is it easier for me to declare bankruptcy? Well, when I think about farms, when I think about agriculture being a leading economic driver in our state, when I think about growing up on a farm in Nash County and cropping tobacco every summer until I went to college, and learning about all that goes into the decision-making of farming, hogs and cows and cucumbers and vegetables and tobacco and cotton and soybean and corn, all of those things, the food and the fiber for not only our state, but the nation and the world, we knew we couldn't afford to have farmers go out of business. And we talked about the fact that the traditional federal programs that are there would not be enough to help farmers. So part of our ask was for direct payments for farmers. And Commissioner Troxler, I commend him for his hard work on helping to put this program together. I know our staffs worked together along with the staffs of the General Assembly. It was great bipartisan work. And as soon as I get back to Raleigh this afternoon or this evening, that bill should be ratified, and I will sign it immediately. And $240 million will be ready for direct payments to farmers in North Carolina. And you do have until December the 10th to get it done. We ask you to tell your friends to make sure you do get it done, because I believe this is going to be something that will be necessary for the survival of agriculture in North Carolina. Not only that, we worked on a federal ask. I met with the president. I've met with him a couple of times, and I spent time with him when he came to North Carolina, spent time with him at the airport, spent time with the president riding around Craven County and viewing damages in New Bern, and have talked to him specifically about the needs in our state and farmers too. We were able to go to Washington, and I met with our bipartisan congressional delegation. We put together our ask of the federal government of $6.3 billion. $922 million for that is for the USDA for farmers in North Carolina. We got good response, and we've been hearing from the staff and the committees of how our response is quality and how we provided the data that they need. And there's a strong push by both our United States senators and our bipartisan delegation to push that forward. We won't get all of it this month, but I do believe that we have a good chance to get a huge portion of it. So we are pushing to do everything that we can. We've encouraged people to give to the Governor's Disaster Relief Fund. There's almost $5 billion that's gone to direct help for people and to plug holes. We're working to provide more affordable housing for people. We're working to help small businesses. We've got to make sure that we have the infrastructure. One of the things that we did after the storm, there were a lot of people who were in the hog and pig and turkey and chicken business who had roads to their operations that they could not travel because of flooding and aren't on what the Department of Transportation usually fixes. Well, I asked, and we're able to work to get our joint operations with the National Guard and the U.S. Army, the National Guard, to go down and repair some of these roads and to help farmers be able to get their feed to the animals to make sure that they didn't die. You know, the generations of farmers that we hope to come, it's going to depend on things that we do right now. Some of your children are going into business behind you. Some of them have decided to go another way. But we've got to make sure that agriculture is strong in North Carolina. And we got to move with the times and understand that technology and science and the fight against climate change and the work that we are doing to make sure we are more efficient into the future is working, because the demand for food and fiber across the world is going to significantly grow. We want North Carolina to be here and to be a part of it. My mission statement for North Carolina is simply this: I want a North Carolina where people are better educated, where they're healthier, where they have more money in their pockets, and they have opportunities to live a more abundant and purposeful life. That's my mission statement for this state. I tell my staff that every day. I tell my cabinet members that every day. I think I told you all this, but the third grade class I told that to really liked the more money in your pockets part of the mission statement. But we all want a more prosperous North Carolina. We've got to provide the education and the help. We need education investments from cradle to college, because you need everything to be in agriculture these days. You have to know technology. You have to understand economics. You have to understand science. We put together Hometown Strong. I believe in rural North Carolina. A lot of people talk about the challenges. I tend to want to talk about the opportunities, because I've lived it. I grew up there. I raised my family in Nash County. I understand that there is a lower cost of living, a greater quality of life, amazing people with strong values, opportunities that are there. But Hometown Strong is going to help bring state government to help places in rural North Carolina that need our help them break down barriers, understanding that infrastructure is critical. We got to get broadband everywhere. Farmers need global markets. I'm excited about the days ahead. I'm excited about my work with the North Carolina Farm Bureau and with all of you. I want to thank you for being here, because you've taken time from your business to come and be one of the agricultural leaders in this state. And you'll go back to your communities and you'll take what you've learned here to not only help your business, but others. And I want to thank you for caring about North Carolina and its people. Because at the end of the day, we want a North Carolina that works for everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to be with you today.